Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, I got a little aggressive with our friend Harry's Corvette here, threw it down in the low to go do a burnout, and, well, it's stuck in low. That's all I got, no burnout. Bryan, but I saved face, man. I slithered underneath, hit the transaxle back there with my hand, got it in neutral and pushed it in. No rollback, man, no rollback.
Nicely done. He gets to keep his man card. You know, I'll tell you what, finally you rode in here in style in something for a change. I think I have an idea of a starting point on this C5. It's one of my favorites. There's some common failures, but talk through your symptoms again. You had no grinding, no lockup prior to that?
No burnout, but no grinding, no lockup, no anything. I went to shift it, and a couple of symptoms is it's actually falling back and forth real easily. When I went underneath to shift it, very easy to shift as well. I mean, it's probably a cable issue, but there's always a visual inspections in order. Yeah,
I'd love the idea of getting this thing up in the air so we can get a really good look at it from underneath. If you haven't seen the interior, it's pristine. You could do this inspection from the top, but why bother? We are fortunate enough to have a lift here. We'll do that, but you know what? A lot of guys these days have lifts in their home garage and are lifting all types of vehicles, but you've got to do that safely. That begins with the solid foundation of the floor, knowing you have enough structural integrity and thickness of concrete to hold a lift like this or whatever you might have. So
absolutely,
let's dive into that.
Yeah, everybody's lifting them. Watch your garage size. Now lifting, there's an art form to that as well. We always have the car up, poof, it's there. Not this time. We're going to go ahead and show you how to do it and how to do it right. The Corvette actually gives us some pucks right here. Now lifting points, we'll look at that in a minute. But we can go ahead and install them there and talk a little bit as we're doing it, because if you go underneath here, these actually go right into the actual frame. You can feel the steel frame right under there, and you can put it in. Once you got the lift puck in there, you're going to center your lift right underneath of that. That's the easy part. You get the lift under there, make sure you're under some metal.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yep.
Now make sure everybody's safe and clear. Doors closed. A lot of times I take the key out. Some of these cars will lock automatically. And then what I want to do is I want to lift it. Now the key is, I'm not going to lift this thing 8 foot and have it fall. We're going to lift it about 6 inches off the ground. Right. And then what do we do?
Give it a little shake.
Yeah,
Feels
don't be
really
afraid to shake it. That's
really
where you want it. If anything's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong here. So not a problem. It's in good shape. But I mentioned earlier the lift points. I'm going to take a look at these lift points. You go ahead and get it up in the air.
I'll get it up in the air. Easy to do.
Cool. Now, if you look at this graphic right here, this is pretty good because it actually shows the different lift points. This one here is actually for the Corvette itself. But if you're dealing with your car, look it up because you can see here, this is where the pucks actually go, right in the frame. We just screwed them in. But we have some optional jack-in locations as well. The optional jack-in locations are some kind of steel. Corvette's made out of fiberglass. You want to go on the steel around here on the frame, or you can see the suspension components. They're getting in on the suspension either way. That's what you want to look at. That's what you want to look for when you're lifting your vehicle. Just get under there, take your time, find some steel components, make sure you're on them. A lot of them will give you a jack location from the trunk. That's a good place to place the lift on it when you're doing it. Now, once it's up in the air, we're in good shape. We can go back and look at the puck location, and even more importantly, we need to see what's going on with the shifter.
And thank goodness for a lift for this repair. Now you can see the anchor points we were talking about, the pucks that John talked about right from Corvette Engineering. So we've got this totally safe, totally up in the air. And again, it's going to make this a lot easier. Now our first step was to remove the central part of the exhaust system. 14, 16 bolts, something like that. A couple guys, a couple cordless guns. 2 minutes, we had that off, down and out of the way. Next, we had to remove the torque tube cover. Now that was 36 bolts, 8mm bolts. Not terribly hard, just a little bit time consuming. 2 guys, 2 cordless guns. We made easy work of that. Now we've got access to see exactly what we need to. So there's the torque tube. Here is the shifter cable. Now, there's obvious damage to the shifter cable. I'm going to pop it off the anchor point here so you can see it. Take your time here. There's brake lines, there's transmission cooling lines. You don't want to damage anything. Get in behind the socket, the ball socket right there, and pop it right off. And let me show you the failure. Now this is interesting. There it is. So it's interesting because on a C5, 2 common failures that happen in this process are the shift indicator, you know, the little orange arrow up top, that appears to be fine. But then there's a plastic linkage, what I'll show you that in a second at the back. That's a common failure. The shifter cables, not quite as much, but clearly this guy's getting replaced. So I'll work this down out of here and get myself back to the transmission itself. Now, there's a bracket that goes all the way up the side of the transmission with 2 13mm nuts. That top one, that's going to challenge you. But I've got that off, and now It's just a matter of getting that bottom bracket bolt out. Let me get up here where I can get a reach on it. And get on it better. There it is, it's off. Now that whole mounting bracket is loose, and we can bring it down, work our way gingerly down through here. Take your time here. And there is the entire shift linkage. Obviously, a vehicle like this makes so much power. There's so much fun waiting to happen. You can't get anywhere unless you've got this transition in place to get that power down to the road.
Bryan, you made short work of that cable.
Tell you what, that thing's definitely seen its last days, and I'm thinking you slammed it into low because that thing has a substantial bend.
Yeah, we won't even go there, but let's actually show how it's supposed to work. I got a new cable right here, and here's the old cable. So what's going on after I did that, what you said I did at least, it's going up and down. You can see that it's not actually moving on the back side at all. Nothing's going on because I can't get it through the sheathing here. Now the new one, here's how it's supposed to work. I'll go here and I'll shift it. You can see the front and the back. Beautiful. You're actually moving it. Now when you took it off also, Bryan, you took the bracket off, man. That was a smart move because it's so hard to get where it was located. Just take the whole bracket off. And this is good because now we can get a good look at the front of how you're gonna have to do it as well. It's a matter of just popping this pin out right here. So if I pop this pin out, take that out, and then even in the car you can get some pliers and squeeze it, but because we're on the bench we're gonna make it real easy. We're just gonna pop it off like that. There's a groove in there, put it back in, cable side down, lock, and then the old safety clip. That's the important part. Make sure it stays in there. Not gonna have any problems, man. I'm gonna be able to slam this one down, aren't I?
Awesome, you certainly are. I'm getting to work.
You get to work. Now let's look at the transmission and what's going on when we shift it. This is pretty cool because I got one blown apart right here to show you. This is actually the shift solenoid here, and this is the manual shift valve. So if I reach under here and I shift this, you can see right there, I'm pulling that cable. Remember, the cable's hooked up right here, and what we're doing is we're pulling it from inside, and when we pull it, we're going through these different gears. Well, that doesn't mean much, but what we're doing is we're moving the actual shift valve here. Now look inside the valve body. I have that. You can see all these passages here. This is where the fluid's going. It's directing the fluid to go into different clutch packs. On the other side, you have all these worm passages. Now all these worm passages right here allow that fluid to be directed to one part or another of the transmission, either holding or releasing different clutch packs, giving you all these different gears. Believe you me, it's pretty complex. Check it out. I got it over here on the transmission. You can see this right here. These are the clutch packs. You actually have some bands, holding devices. You have all the clutches right here as you start to go through. So when we shift it, once again, right here with the manual valve, fluid starts flowing. Where does the fluid flow? Well, right here you can see inside of here, there's different clutches. There are friction material and steel material. I got a couple right here, you can see them. And they sandwich together. So what's happening, that fluid's getting directed back here into a piston. When that piston engages, it actually pushes up on that, and they're not allowed to spin anymore. They're gonna lock or unlock a driving member of the transmission. Well, what's a driving member of a transmission? Well, I got one right here. You can actually see the clutch packs inside, the clutch packs are free. Bam, I shifted into gear, fluid behind here, piston engages, and I'm locking either a sun gear or planetary gear set, spline right there, spinning around, driving the gears. First, second, third gear, whatever it takes. Speaking of shifting gears, let's check in with Bryan. He's got the Corvette looking pretty good.
The new cable. It's not all that complex. There's only 5 anchor points, the length of the cable. This job isn't about complexity, it's about access. So you've got to be patient here. Think about it all, the plastic connections, some silicone lubricant, which may help you get things seated. I'm going to start at the bottom of the shifter linkage, and then this is going to be the challenge right here, getting it seated back into that bracket. I'm going to go ahead and send this cable up and use the bushing to help hold it in place, like I've got an assistant, up above the brake line, roll it onto the ball, and snap it in. Now, up above, you got to get way up in here and seat it. I like to work from the front to the back on this. That's going to be your friend when you're seating that rear bracket. Okay, got access there. Now, I'm going to come back and do a final seating at that mounting, but it's anchored up front. Now, we come to the back. Now, back here, you can see the new linkage. And you can see the safety connector here, which is going to help hold that ball right in place. So once again, bracket upright, headed north, get the bushing in here to hold it, Slide my shift linkage back. Remember, John left this thing in neutral, so we're going to be darn close when we seat it. And there it is. Now, slide my safety tab back, pull my lock hasp up, red tab back in, lock it down, and we're set. Now, one more adjustment right up here to this bracket. This requires a little bit of patience. I can feel it. You gotta wrestle, and snap it in place. Okay, shift linkage is back in. Not that bad, just take your time here. We gotta put the torque tube panel cover back on, get the exhaust reinstalled, get everything torqued down and set. And I think it's possible that John's got plans for this car.